Perfect. Again, Hannon Armstrong invests in climate change solutions. But I couldn't be more excited to follow beyond me. I started when I was 17 in a junior in high school, and I picked up this book, which was just published in 1972. And I was thunderstruck by, look at the blue circle around the cow. It took 16 times more energy to produce a gram of protein from a cow than, say, a soybean. I don't know why that had such a profound impact on me. But the left-hand side, the book that started a revolution in the way Americans eat. It started a revolution in the way I think about energy, the way I think about energy in transportation, in electric power, and eating. So we all have our journey start somewhere, and I was very fortunate to get started at an early age thinking about environmental investing and climate change solutions. What does a climate change solution look like? The United States Marine Corps base is located in Parris Island, South Carolina, a barrier island on the Atlantic coast. It's very much subject to extreme weather events and resulting power outages. That's not a good thing for an increasingly electrified military base. You've got to have your power on. So we made an investment of about $80 million in this facility, and it has three characteristics. It's digitalized, it's decentralized, and it's decarbonized. The digitalization is LED lighting and controls. It's a super wired, super smart set of buildings. The decentralization is an on-site, very efficient power plant, and decarbonization comes from, you see solar panels, but also energy storage. And this is an example of the convergence of technologies that are very exciting when operating together. These are very, very smart buildings, and buildings produce about 40% of greenhouse gas emissions. The technologies used at Parris Island, although there was no wind, the solar battery storage and other technologies have come down in cost incredibly quickly. I've been in this for 40 years. What's happened in the last 10 years, nobody predicted. And it is changing the nature of the electric power system such that states like Colorado and California are saying they're going to be able to go 100% renewables. This is a phenomenal set of achievements in the industry. And the industry's aspirations are growing as a result. The solar industry has just announced it wants to go from 2% of power generation to 20%. The wind industry is going to double in 10 years. New York City just announced a plan to decarbonize the building stock 80% by 2050. This is phenomenal. I start to get really excited after 40 years of toiling in obscurity on this stuff and think, I should be really optimistic. There's a thing about toiling in obscurity for 40 years. You tend to not get too excited when things are going really well. So I often reflect on an NPR segment I heard about a NASA astronaut getting trained for leaving the International Space Station. And basically, you're tethered to a thin line, you're 220 miles above Earth, and things go wrong. And the training from NASA is for that astronaut to simply stop and realize that no matter what's going wrong, let's say a kink in the oxygen line, it is quite likely this is as good as it's going to get for the rest of your life. It is far more likely from an engineering standpoint that things are going to get bad really quickly. So I tend to do that. How does that apply to this business? Well, in 2018, carbon emissions in the U.S. went up more than 3%. The rate of decline has kept falling for the last 4 years. This is the exact opposite trend we need. Instead of going up 3% a year, they need to go down 3% a year. Despite all the incredible progress the industry has made, we're losing. And I think it's important to ask, why are we losing climate change? We've got all the technology. And I think one of the things people miss is the fossil fuel industry has been in business for 150 years. And it is very, very large, very embedded, and very hard to change. People don't like to change. The industries don't like to go out of business. When the solar industry says they're going from 2 to 20%, that means somebody's losing 18% of market share. Trust me, nobody wants that to happen. If you look at this chart, which variants are shown, this is to me the simplest and most elegant relationship between CO2 emissions and global temperatures. And yet you have climate deniers everywhere. And I think about that. And growing up in Ohio in the 70s, I saw what disruption did to the state of Ohio. When Japanese cars got imported, nobody wanted to buy a US car. It was disruption is very hard, on people. It's very hard on cities. It's very hard on states. Well, people work in the fossil fuel industry. They don't want to lose their job. Oscar Wilde once remarked that it's hard to make a man understand something when his paycheck depends on him not understanding it. Climate science is complicated. There's lots of, it's a theory. Just like gravity is a theory. You can't prove it. It's a pretty good bet. But I kind of get it. And the fossil fuel industry is taking pages out of the tobacco industry playbook. I mentioned the 3Ds earlier at Paris Island. The 3Ds in the tobacco industry playbook are disinformation, discrediting, and doubt. They're using disinformation to cast doubt on climate science. They're using discrediting techniques to cast doubt on climate scientists and even science itself, all in an effort to confuse people as to why do we have to make this change now? This is going to be really hard. Ohio is a mess, probably still is in some parts from Japanese oil imports. There are large sectors of the country that are going to change fundamentally. Some for the better, some for the worse. Change is very difficult. We need to do something differently. We've made great progress and we're losing the battle. I'm an economist by training and like to think about what the conservative economists would say. Milton Friedman talks about sooty smoke of a factory burning a man's collar should be paid by the producer of that smoke. The only way that's ever going to happen is if we put a price on carbon. It's the one thing we have studiously failed to do is price carbon. We let the fossil fuel industry socialize the cost of their business and privatize their profits. We're never going to make change unless there is a price on carbon. We won't make change at the rate we need to make it unless there's a price on carbon. And people get, and I get excited about things like the Green New Deal and renewable portfolio standards. These are really good, positive things. Michael Bloomberg just announced a new Beyond Coal initiative. These are really great. But I would give you one signpost, you're all too young, but a decoder ring for when a politician is talking about something that is actually going to make a difference. If they're not talking about pricing carbon, they may be doing bad things, they may be doing good things. Neither of them are doing enough things to make a difference. We don't have much time. I love Bloomberg's space shot or moonshot analogy when he announced his Beyond Coal initiative last week. There's a couple problems with the analogy. We didn't need to go to the moon. There was no deadline to go to the moon. It was very good. We all got a lot of great technology and it was very exciting. But those were nice to haves. This is not a nice to have. And it's a very depressing picture when you see we get to 5 degrees C by 2100. And it's not a done deal. There is an enormous amount of change. It's just, I wish I could be super upbeat and positive about this. Nah, I'm not. It's going too slowly. But Hannon Armstrong is one of a number of companies who are starting to use capital to make a difference. If our investment thesis is correct, that we'll earn better risk-adjusted returns investing on the right side of the climate change line in climate solutions, then this is going to tilt the cost of capital for fossil fuel companies. It's already starting to the negative and to the positive for companies like ourselves. We invest $1 billion a year. We hope to start investing more than that, maybe 2 billion, 3 billion. This is an enormously expensive problem to fix. There are ways to do it. We just have to go a lot faster. Thank you very much.